I feel like you and I have formed a really strong bond. And I learned a lot from you, just being your friend and business partner. I really look up to you. So I'm super excited to have you on this podcast today, pick your brain a little bit and hopefully provide some value to the audience about business and marketing. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Well, first, thank you for that.
Of course.
That feeling is definitely mutual. I would say background, I would consider myself a serial entrepreneur, had a lot of different businesses, even as a kid. When I studied abroad, I put myself through college, teaching English, having different conversations, went on to help other people within their marketing, eventually worked for a startup abroad. So with that, I came in at a really high capital injection, but I was able to see, how money, resources, people can build really great things. Worked with Fortune 500 companies, high growth companies, venture capital, all different types of industries, and then eventually wanted to take those concepts and those ideas and all best practices and infuse it in a marketing and creative agency to build, to help companies scale.
That's awesome. And the name of your company is?
Alecci Media.
Cool. So that's awesome. I know we've had a podcast before and you kind of dove deep in your background. I want to kind of pick your brain now about the entrepreneurial journey, right? Your struggles and successes, what it takes to build a successful marketing agency. Obviously you have the experience, right? But I'm sure there's other things that come with that, no?
Absolutely. So I would liken it to kind of the hero's journey in a lot of ways. There's a really interesting book. I'm sure many of you have heard of it, The E-Myth, and it talks about how when entrepreneurs go into business, they're either really like the visionary or they're the technician, like the technical expert, and they get fed up with where they work and think they can do it better, like the manager, like the people expert and operations expert. And I feel that I kind of have a little bit of all of those things. And I started my company 5 years ago out of happenstance because, shit got rough.
Yeah.
And that was in a time during COVID. So digital marketing just went crazy. And so that was a really great time for me. But there was also a little bit of setback because I didn't have like the sales skills. And also I was technically like an amazing storyteller, an amazing content expert, could use data and had all of these skills, but I didn't think about sales because that's not my strong suit. And that's really the lifeblood of any company. And so, this past year I've been able to pivot, but going back last year, prior to that, when I wasn't able to figure out how to build the portfolio because I was so focused on technically doing things really well.
Right.
That's when I had to go and work for someone else to come out of that realizing, no, the heart of it, I am an entrepreneur and I have to seek that out. So like the hero's journey, and you'll hear a lot of successful people go through it. There's always a setback or something that's really trying. Everything, starts to break. You're not sure where to turn, what to do. You want to give up. Like I was driving for Uber and, right. And like my friends during that time, as I was building the business, had to like donate food to me. Right. And like, I have a great support system, but like, it was really hard. And then I just kept hustling and eventually there was like that breakthrough. But I think in terms of the entrepreneurial spirit, you have to be willing to be agile, to adapt, to know that cyclically things are going to happen. You're going to experience different seasons, and not everybody is made out for that.
Right.
However, you can be the visionary, and the faster that you're able to surround yourself with those experts, you can continue to rise. But I would say entrepreneurship's like that.
I would agree, and I'll second that. I mean, with my journey, I was also driving over. So that's like crazy that you mentioned that. When I first started, I was DoorDash, Uber Eats, Uber, all that stuff, just to kind of try and get by, right? Because I took that risk of starting my own business. And yeah, it was risky, but I knew it was always what I wanted to do. And I wasn't truly happy. And so like, that is just part of being an entrepreneur, is just hitting that reset button, knowing that, you know, yeah, this is a risky thing, but why am I even like, I'm just going to the same job every day, doing the same thing every day. I'm not going anywhere in life. Like, you only have one life, you know, in my eyes, if you're not chasing your dream, then why are you even, you know, like I think life is meant to have those moments where you just make those big decisions. And so I totally agree with that. I want to know, like, cause me and you have both had experience in our individual industries. Like, I've had experience in video production. You've had experience in marketing, with the fintech company, right? And, raising funds, stuff like that. Do you think you need experience to like start that entrepreneurial journey, or can someone start from scratch and learn, or how does that kind of work in your opinion?
So everybody, I think, should start a business of some sort. I think anybody can do it. You don't need the experience. I think that is what holds a lot of people back, is that fear-based mentality. They're scared to try and to fail. But, you know, I think it was like Peter Drucker, like if you fail forward and fail fast, that's where the learning, that's where the growth happens. And our minds are literally hardwired to avoid pain and seek pleasure. So like when you realize that, and you look at different challenges, it can be scary with taking calculated risks. Like I said, that's where the growth is. So I don't think you need the experience. You're going to find it out. And I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs that, you know, and people that were like, should I spend money on a, 4-year college degree or start a business? And like, I think traditional college like is great, and especially in, specialist industries, but it's also the network that you get there, but the amount of experience, like you're going to learn more trying and failing than you are in a classroom.
I agree, because I went to college for a year in film school, and it just seemed like they were, I don't know. It took a while. I went for a year, and it took a while to get for me to learn things. It's like, yes, we've already gone over that. Like, come on, like next thing. Like, it wasn't until I started my business, literally in college, I started my business and then learned more in that first 6 months of business than I ever had in any school anywhere, because it's like you said, it's just failing and going through the struggles and putting yourself in those tough, like awkward kind of situations. You don't want to go to the networking event, but you know that if you do, opportunity is going to come, right? No pain, no gain.
Exactly. And, with that, I think that's so interesting with your story, because people obviously have different ways in which they learn. And I really think the people that are entrepreneurs are the ones that can't fit inside the box, that don't want to follow authority, that like control.
Yeah.
And that's the nature when you look across the board at entrepreneurs. They think they can do it better. And so like, I don't fit those molds. And like, as a creative person, I want to go to the coffee shop and write. Like, I don't want to sit in under fluorescent lights all day, feeling like a plant, indoors. So, yeah.
Totally get that. So now I want to kind of get into marketing. I love marketing a lot. I think first though, we should start with the difference between sales and marketing. I feel like that's a topic of conversation that we've been like literally before this podcast, we were talking about that. And then also when you did your introduction. So I'm like curious, that popped in my mind. What is your difference between sales and marketing?
So marketing, this distinction I love. Marketing is the brand essence, right? It's your visual identity, and it's also the vibe and the feelings that you want to evoke in your audience for them to take away, to learn about you so that they can make a purchasing decision. So it's giving them, at its core, giving a potential customer all the information they need in all the different formats to make a decision. So the whole point is to get them to convert. And I also liken it to like dating. Like if you, for instance, meet somebody on a date, you're not going to ask them for marriage on the first date, right? Like they need to get to know who you are, what it is that you offer,
that's
all
a
of
great
those
analogy,
things,
yeah.
right? Versus sales, which is like, that's taking it over to the next stage. That's marriage. So marketing is maybe bringing the potential dates, and sales is when you get them to convert to the next level. You're
closing the date. Yeah. Got that. Yeah.
Get the second date or, whatever it is, another opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, for me, like the emotion part is the most important part of marketing, I would say. And it just like
companies miss that.
Yeah. And it comes with experience. Like you and I have worked with so many different types of companies, and the emotion is different for everyone. So like, for instance, if you are a pool fencing company, we'll use that as an example because we were just looking, we're talking about A Safe Pool, which is a client of mine. They're a pool fencing company. So who are you really selling to, right? So yes, the pool fence is meant to save children, but really you're marketing to the parents. So what are the emotions that the parents need to feel in order to make that purchasing decision in the end? In my opinion, they need to feel like this product gives them peace of mind, right? This is a life that is valuable to them. Probably the most valuable life to them, right, is their child, right? So tapping into that emotion triggers something off, especially, as a protective parent. If you can really dial in that emotion and talk about that in the video of, hey, this is your child's life we're talking about. Here are the stories we've heard of things that can happen, right? And so we want to prevent as many drownings as possible. We want your children to be safe, but also like we want you to have that peace of mind so you can go inside, cook while the children are playing outside. Like, isn't that a nice thing? So putting yourself in their shoes, the end consumer's shoes, is the most important part in drawing out that emotion.
So I would agree. And when you talk about, as you create these amazing video productions, right? That's the content vehicle. That's the driver of how you're evoking and eliciting that emotion. What I would say on the other hand to that, there are companies that's where they get it wrong. They say, I have a product or service, and now I have to go and find the people that want that certain thing. And it's a one-way marketing street versus what you're saying about the end user, what's important for them. And I've been traditionally trained, I would say, not to talk about the negative, like the fear that you're speaking of, but more about the peace of mind, like the positive, right? Like what you want them to feel in the positive, so they can associate positivity with your brand instead of the scare tactics. Because people want to have that authentic and lovely connection with the brand and feel like they get me.
Yeah,
they
it's just
understand
that association, right? Positive feelings to your brand. Like that's just the association. So I think you're absolutely right. So now let's talk about the marketing landscape, right? So when you were at this company in the past to where marketing is now, where do you see the changes and what has, I guess, changed in the landscape today?
I love that. So for context, the first, I would say, real career starting path, I worked for this startup internationally. And I came on board. They were a social media analytics company. They were like Facebook's one of their first preferred social media analytics platforms, because that's when brands first started adopting Facebook pages. And so what has transpired, right, is like 5 months prior to me getting that job, I was telling CEOs to get on social media and they would laugh at me. So I would like leave the room and I'm like, okay, you guys just wait, right? But then it became, okay, how can we leverage these platforms to engage with our audiences? So from there, like when it came to Facebook, right, being the dominant platform, it was all for chasing likes and for building that community. I was actually thinking about this yesterday, that at the beginning, the rise of the first social media influencers, because that wasn't a thing, right? You had your friends, you had, these brands, but there was sort of, if you think about brand ambassadors or, for example, Michael Jordan and Nike, for instance, right? Like that wasn't a thing until it was. And so I got to see the rise, for example, Bethany Moda. She was one of the first YouTube stars. And I met her just as she started blowing up on social and got her deal with Aeropostale, right? And like that was huge. I saw and worked with some of the largest social media influencers in the world that started to build that, which was groundbreaking at the time. I saw NASA and worked with them and collaborated for a social media conference, but their first capture of Pluto, the first close-up, they released that image on Instagram, right? Before any news outlets. So I've seen the rise of sort of the first movers. I've seen the rise of influencers, and collectively we've also seen like sponsorships and people saying, okay, this is an ad, and not lying about that. And the whole aspect of the influencer, right? Like, yes, they have these brand deals, but the community that they've cultivated, community is looking for them to be honest about what are the things that they recommend. So now that's transitioned into, you have mega influencers like a Kim Kardashian to a nano influencer, like maybe us, for example. And so now I believe that where it's transitioning is people are looking for more authentic content. Like we've had the super manicured, perfect videos to now people wanting to get closer to, hey, this is not my Instagram perfect lifestyle. But here's also the trials and tribulations. It's not just the highlight reel, because people want to connect deeply, especially like after COVID and everybody sort of being cut off from those social interactions. So I see the rise more of nano influencers or having more intimate lives and pop-ups and little experiences, but something that brings out that deeper connection to say, hey, like, you're human, I'm human, and this more vulnerability that we're seeing.
Well, it's just that attention, to kind of add on to what you said. Attention is everything. And right now, social media is the best way to get attention. So attention is always going to create opportunities, no matter what, whether it's going to a networking event, putting yourself on social media, putting your brand out there, right? It's all attention. And so the more attention you can gain, the better opportunities, the better business you're going to have. And I think it's just a direct correlation to the success of your business is how much you post on social media.
It's definitely a huge part, right? But remember, like, when you look at social, like, that's just one aspect of the marketing and, let's say, sales mix, because you can curate and post content on social, but like, people want to see you interacting in a networking setting. Right. They want to see you, behind the stage, on stage.
Or even like webinars. Yeah.
Yeah. Like different ways for people to consume content in a modern lifestyle, but knowing like social is just one component of the larger mix.
And also you talk about authenticity. I want to get into that as well. So many people now, I feel like, are on their phones, kind of out of touch with reality a little bit. And even you look at like TV commercials, like when you're watching a football game or whatever kind of TV you're watching, any commercial now is almost like that. You could tell they're pushing the authenticity. Right. So like you're having those commercials where people are even like holding up their phones, talking to the camera, like, hey, buy this product. Right. That's like on TV. That's not what we think of as a TV commercial. Right. We think of it as more manicured. And
that's interesting.
But now they're doing more like conversational sort of advertisements, because the data is showing, and I've read multiple articles, the data is showing that those conversational kind of advertisements are working better. They're just simply working better because everyone's on their phone. People are craving conversation, authenticity, that connection.
Right. And that's what we're seeing with the influencers.
Yeah.
Right. It's not just these crazy ad campaigns, of the yesteryears, but you're seeing, because influencers and these people are talking directly to their phones, or they're speaking in their cars. Right. So people have gotten used to consuming that type of content, but you're absolutely right. Attention is currency. Yeah. And that's what you pay for.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Are you on social media at all while we're on this topic?
So it's so funny because I am, but not the way that I would like to. Okay. And like, for context, it's just funny that you bring this up, because I've been really grappling with this idea the last 3 days. So when I started my career, I was one of, let's say, the first influencers in terms of like blog writing.
Oh, okay.
About social media and the advent of using social media for marketing efforts.
Interesting.
And so like I would get crazy views, right? And this was also before we had things like Facebook Live, or if you remember Meerkat, like this going way back, like before Vine, before all this stuff. But the reality was I didn't keep up with it because I also didn't know what my personal brand was going to be. And then when I launched my business 5 years ago, it's like I've spent so much time making other people's brands and companies successful that I never prioritized my own content. And it's kind of to the point where it's like, well, one, practice what you preach, but also knowing like even sitting like on this podcast and being like, visual, that was my goal for this year, was to be on 3 podcasts. So thanks to you.
This is the third
you
one. Made it.
And also, other speaking engagements, but I do think it's time for that, but it's also, like Andy Warhol, like everybody's famous for at least 15 minutes, and,
well, I mean, I think you're set up for success on social media. I think if you really are consistent with it, because I've seen your speaking engagements in real life, and all it is is providing. Right. All it is providing value, and you're really good at that, right? And so, like, if you just provide value to that target audience, like we are doing now, you're gonna see so much success, and you've had the experience, right? You've had those challenges and those things you've been through and those lessons you've learned. So now you can share that with the world. And I think that's what sets you up for success on social media, and you should post more.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Though, like, you have to make that commitment. And, I have these conversations with brands every day and could come up with, a billion ideas, and, that's really where my strength is, but it's also timing. And I think you have to commit to saying like, okay, like I'm going to do this, and just putting yourself out in the limelight. Yeah. Like it's, it's like, what am I scared of? Yeah. Honestly, it's trolls. That's really, I've
had so many trolls. There's people who tell me like, tuck away that chain and like weird stuff, like very specific thing. It's the specific things.
The specific things.
But seriously, it's the specific things that piss you off the most. And you just got to like learn to ignore that. Like it's hard, but honestly, the more you post, the more you're just like, whatever.
Yeah,
it's weird though, because you never listen to the positive comments.
No,
you almost
never.
No, it's great. Like I appreciate the positive comments, but like the negative ones that are super specific, like hurt the most, right? And it's just, you got to realize it's just people who feel insecure and are projecting that online, because you know what I mean?
Well, you just remind me of like what my mother would say, right? Of the bullies. It's true. And I think that's, that tough skin, that you have to build. It's just making that jump, man. And I'm going to do it. But you have to make a commitment and be like, I'm doing this, F the trolls.
Yeah.
Or give it to somebody else to delegate, because you don't want to know what people are saying.
What is the most effective social media platform? I mean, I guess they're all effective, but like, are specific industries better than others for each platform, or how do you view that?
So it really depends on your business, because each platform speaks a different language, right? Like I look at Instagram like a high-end digital magazine, if you were to utilize it the way I think, but like that's a visual narrative, and that's very, as you know, being in that industry, very like from the visual side is very time consuming, right? And you have to stay abreast on that versus like Facebook, if you want to, it depends where your audience sits. It depends what you want to commit to. And I wouldn't say like it's, one thing or the other. Like Lamborghini has a SoundCloud. Like, does Lamborghini need a SoundCloud? Like, maybe if you're really into that, but like, that's not
right.
You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to be everywhere all at once. There's a movie.
Yes, that's one of my favorite movies. I've seen it like 4 times.
So silly. It is so silly.
Yeah, but I love it.
I respect it. I respect it. But you don't have to. And like, you don't want to spread yourself thin. I would say take 2 platforms that make sense for your brand and go hard on both of them.
That's great advice. That's honestly great advice. I don't have a problem with 100% agreeing with that.
Well, thank you.
I think for B2B, like just to kind of help out here, like business to business, obviously I would say 90% of B2B companies, 95 need to be on LinkedIn.
Agreed. Absolutely.
In my opinion, like that is the best. I've gotten so much opportunity from LinkedIn. It's not even close to any other platform because I'm B2B, right? But I just made a commitment this year to post. I post almost every other day on there, if not every day on there during the weekdays. And so I've just figured it out through testing different things through.
Have you gotten any business?
I get messages all the time on LinkedIn.
Yes, have you fulfilled any?
Yes, 100%.
Interesting.
Yeah. Multiple. So like, and I remember I got a business opportunity like right when I started my LinkedIn before I even had like 500 connections. And that was like my first big shoot that kind of like, honestly, that was like my breakthrough. I remember the company, the company was called Stentam.
He's not getting paid for the royalties for that one.
Yeah. Stenson Tamidon. They had about 50 employees. The CMO saw my LinkedIn. I was just giving advice, like posting videos, right, from podcast clips and just like dumping all my videos on there and just giving advice to my target audience, which is CMOs and business owners. And like saw it. Yeah, he saw it. Right. And he messaged me on LinkedIn and said, "Hey, like, I like your content. Let's, collaborate." And that was the first big shoot that I had with a full crew that really propelled my business forward. And I've gotten not just that, but so many other opportunities from just posting consistently on LinkedIn for 2 years. And I want to make that clear. It's for
2 years.
2
you hear
years.
That? It's 2 years.
Yeah. You're not going to get instant, like people going up to you and asking for stuff. You need that consistency. Wouldn't you agree? Yeah.
So I want to call out two things. Consistency after the first thing, because I don't want to forget it. The data shows that CEOs and people that post garner more engagement and interactions and all that jazz over their companies. CEOs that post, let's say, a news update will get far more engagement and reach than their companies. So that goes back to the authenticity thing, because people connect with people, not legal entities.
That's right.
Or robots. So that is something very interesting. And again, too, like if you're posting every other day, that's what I'm talking about. The consistency and the commitment. The more often you post, granted, it has to be, good content. And as you said, like practical, actionable advice. But that, took time. So you really have to make that commitment. And I would say, like, yes, frequency matters, but what matters more is how great the content is.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree. I'm a big believer in quality. I think now quality is going to overcome quantity. You see all of these AI kind of platforms coming out that allow you to create a bunch of content at once. And so people are just posting. It's creating that environment where people are just posting whatever to get online. And that's great. However, if you really want to create something that's impactful and, like we said earlier, is going to draw out that emotion in your target audience, and that's going to help them and build that trust that you want as a business owner, then the quality is what I feel like is starting to matter more.
So yes, I agree, but I also disagree. Quality has always been the name of the game. Like 10 years ago, we were grading content and we would have like a fun thing where it would say, okay, we're going to show the audience 3 different pictures and ask which one did you think got the most engagement. And it would always be the one that you would never think. And the reality is, yes, like the algorithms will prioritize the content that is pushed out more frequently, like for example, on Instagram stories. But also if people aren't engaging with it and it's not relevant, it's also going to deprioritize, right? So I think that one, when you know that and you see what works with your audience, remove the crap, cut the fat, and double down on what's working. And like also social media managers, like to this point, like my heart goes out to all of you because there is such a, like even, 10 years ago is like, we would say it's the content monster. And you can feed it all day long, but that doesn't necessarily net out a business transaction, like what you have found on LinkedIn, right? Like that's not the case for everybody. So again, it goes back to quality, but like so many leaders expect social media managers to be the videographer, the photographer, to use these tools to push out all this content. And if your content sucks and you personally wouldn't share it, then go back.
Yeah.
Right? Because people, they're going to deprioritize it. In fact, when you look at Facebook, like ads, for instance, you get charged a higher CPC, cost per click, when your content is crap, because it will know if people are engaging with it. You are literally getting charged more money because your content sucks.
Yep. Yeah. And to second that, I would say, actually me and my dad talked about this. Dad, obviously he taught me everything. He's in the agency business as well, video production. And so we talk about how it's almost more important to invest more into the production side than the actual advertising side. Because to your point, it's like it needs to resonate, right? If it doesn't resonate, it's not going to work. So you need to make sure, especially when you're starting out advertising, that you're really testing out the market. You're testing out what works. So you're investing more into production. Now, once you kind of have that dialed in, I can see a switch, but you just need to find what resonates. You need to find what works. And so the production side is a big component, like we've been talking about this whole time. But
no, it's huge. Brand storytelling, right? So find experts, hire someone and a team like yours to be able to find that and distill what is going to resonate with the target market. Because so many entrepreneurs make that mistake of like, you're like, well, I think this is what's going to work. And it's like, no, you need to look at the data and work with a team like yours that can say like, we are going to test this out, several different formats, and see which storyline hits the mark. And that could change everything for a company, but it's also experimentation. Like video production, yes, it's costly, but it's necessary to build your brand and that digital footprint.
I can't tell you how many times I've been caught off guard by content that works that I never thought would work.
Yeah. Right.
Right. So like, that's why my business model, I mean, you've partnered with me on a lot. That's why my business model is bulk content. So it's just what I believe in, because I've seen countless times of, I thought that this was the message that we needed to push out, but really it's this. And so kind of limiting yourself with content, I feel like is a disadvantage versus if you have a bunch of different types of content that you can test out, especially on that first quarter or that first month of videos that you do, that first batch, I should say. Having those diverse pieces of content are really going to help you dial in that target audience.
Well, and you need the team to execute it effectively. So there is data, so you know what's working. But you're absolutely right, Levi. Like, I go back to marketing is also the experimentation, and we have the data and real-time analytics to say, this is what's working, this is what's not. And by doing bulk content, you see that. I also see a lot of entrepreneurs, like what you were saying, already limit themselves and stake a bet thinking like this is the one that's going to be the winner. And they may not release all the other valuable content because they're too scared, because it's not what's worked in the past. And I think that's also a struggle. But that is where, for example, my team with the Alecci Media, where we come up with the campaign to say, okay, Levi created all of these videos. How are we going to repurpose it? How are we going to create, blog or a LinkedIn piece, for a hard launch, or, an email campaign? How do all of these assets connect together to the bigger picture so that it brings people the information, so then they ultimately convert? Marketing is both the art and science. And so many entrepreneurs don't see the science that goes behind the art. And I think that's one of the biggest struggles in our industry and marketers have a tough job in that.
Yeah, I would totally agree.
We put the machine behind the content, right, that you are creating, but we're also envisioning that together.
Yeah, absolutely. And being strategic about it.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay. I wanted to talk a little bit about AI before we end here. This is obviously a very highly talked about subject, right? Especially today. I know I use a lot of AI tools in my business. I'm sure you do too. I know you've talked about ChatGPT. What about the opportunities? What opportunities do you see with AI in the future, just with business in general? And maybe a little bit towards your side of marketing tools?
So I would say it's definitely something that everybody should look at leveraging. ChatGPT is one aspect. Really, AI and machine learning has been around since like the 40s. But with ChatGPT, right, it's become more, let's say, mainstream and topic of conversation, and then as well as how fast everything's accelerating. I would say some of the biggest opportunities, it's something that we're actually deploying with my chief of operations, Candy Brown, with Kawadi Consulting. The model that we're building from a client experience and also operations aspect is deploying AI in a way that's going to save me time and my team time and be more effective. So I can focus our energy on the high value tasks. So I believe that as these tools also become readily available and incorporated, AI is going to take away some of the most time consuming, less revenue generating tasks. So I'll give you an example.
Okay.
Right now we're building this platform and this model where it's going to essentially provide not just a recap, but also the ability to, when we make changes in tasks or projects, to automatically update our clients and also give sort of action items. Like
Nice.
If, for example, they want to submit a new request, that then they're offered, hey, what project comes out
Right.
of the stream of workflow, and there's not an interaction that involves me and the client, or 3 different meetings, several emails, right? It's something that's actionable, quick. And so that's going to save me, 1, so much time, but 2, like even with a project manager, so they're more focused on building great things with the team and ensuring everybody's on sync, but all these things are happening in the back end, or updates are happening on the back end, which normally would have taken maybe 5 hours a week,
Right.
just in that communication,
Right.
and take out like meeting time. So AI being used to take those more laborious, time consuming not revenue generating tasks and offload that onto the robotic slaves.
I
don't know if that's PC, but
robotic slave. I just watched The Matrix actually. So like I'm like, yeah, it's crazy.
But think about it from a work perspective, right? That allows you to be more creative. That allows you to think about the more enriching ideas and projects.
Because the mindset's different, right? Like when you are doing those laborious tasks, like you said, you're very linear focused. And so what you said earlier is like, to be creative, you want to be outside, you want to go in nature, you want to go to a coffee shop, right? As creatives, we know that your mind has to have the capacity to think freely, right? Because when you are doing accounting, when you're managing your books, when you're managing projects, you're in that linear mindset. And so to be able to think freely, I think for me, AI has really helped, especially in our editing process. So when me or an editor edits something, whether it's internal, external, we have AI tools that do the cutting for us. We have,
like when somebody says, like I've been saying, can cut it out.
We have AI tools that do the subtitles. So like all of the stuff that used to take hours and hours and hours in the film industry is slowly getting, what's the word? Taken over by AI. I guess.
And think about how much money that saves you, or if you're, that normally, like if you're paying like an editor, so much money per hour, right?
Yeah, but I don't think of it like that. I wouldn't say that the money that I've paid the editors has gone down since we've used AI tools.
No.
I would say that actually our work is better.
No, that's what I'm saying is like what you would have paid for something that is a menial task can now go in the part that makes the most, because let's say your energy and your focus takes just as like much and maybe more time doing that administrative work.
Yes.
Is mentally more taxing than you being creative.
Yeah.
So if you're able to mitigate and reduce those technical components, your team can be more efficient, more creative, because it may still take the same amount of time, but the energy and focus is different.
100% agree.
So that's what I was trying to articulate.
Honestly, for someone who isn't a creative, it sounds like we're probably just like talking out of our ass, but it's like 100% true. Like you need that capacity to think, right? You need those processes in place that give you that capacity to think freely. AI is really, really helping with that. And so I'm excited for the future.
I call it like my thought partner, right? Because, and I think I mentioned maybe this on the previous podcast we did, but like I have ADHD and my brain is thinking about 10 thoughts simultaneously at the same time. So for me to be able to like talk and engage with something where I can go down another rabbit hole or find other resources. Like I'm learning faster and I'm absorbing content differently.
Right.
But that's just one aspect. But I would say too, like for any entrepreneur, right? And I brought this up last time, is like hire out the experts and find ways to create efficiency. So whether that's with AI, whether that's with another expert that has, hire your weaknesses.
Love that. I love that. Cool. Well, Alexandria, thank you so much for coming on. Why don't you plug your social media and your website just one more time so people know where to find you?
Thank you. So Alecci, Alecci, media.com. And then my Instagram handle is also Alecci Media.
Got it. And many more podcasts, I'm sure, from you and I to come. So I'm excited for the future. Thank you so much for coming to my studio and sitting down and having a conversation with me. I really enjoyed it. I hope to have you on again soon. So,
well, thank you for having me. And I hope that you guys found this conversation as riveting as we did, because we nerded out and I love this. So
they will. But yeah, thanks for watching. Happy holidays.
You.